Let's boom! We're live and on the air. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the channel, Yankees Outdoor Adventures. I am Machalono Specuino. Do you know me as Yankee? And today is Veterans Day. So I want to send out a great big salute to all of our veterans. Thank you for your service. It is also November. November is Native American Heritage Month, and in honor of Native American Heritage Month, throughout the month of November, I always share Native American heritage videos, and today will be no different. Also, in honor of Veterans Day, I want to give a big salute to all of our Native American veterans that are out there. And I want to give some facts. I'm going to give some facts. How do you celebrate Native American Heritage Month? You learn something about a Native American heritage that you did not know. That's what you do. If you do that today, you just help celebrate Native American Heritage Month. Now, I'm going to rattle off some facts for you guys. Of course, I'll get to the chat room and address everybody just in a few moments, give some time for the chat to get in. But for replay value, I do want to go ahead and roll into some of these facts. Now, in honor of Veterans Day, I'm going to give you some military facts about our Native American brothers and sisters. Currently, there are more than 31,000 Native Americans, including Alaskan Natives, on active duty today. And again, a great big salute and a thank you to all of you veterans and military service people. That's men and women. Almost 19% of American Indians have served in the armed forces compared to the 14% of other ethnic groups. And this is kind of an important part too, because it's something that I'm going to hit on later as a topic in this video. It's a large percentage of the population of Native Americans do give themselves to the armed forces for a term of service. And it's 19% on a comparison of 14% to other groups. Estimated 12,000 served during World War I. A really interesting fact about the 12,000 that served during World War I, none of them were considered citizens of the United States. And even when they returned home from the war, they were not entitled to any benefit that any other soldier received, and they were still not considered resident or citizens of the U.S. And I just think it's a really important point, because even though the U.S. has always throughout history tended to leave them out, they've always been there for the United States. And that'll be part of a thing I get into here in another minute. 44,000 Native Americans served in World War II. And at this time, out of the 44,000 people at this time, the estimated population of their entire clans of Native Americans was around 350,000, and 44,000 of them enlisted. Today, there's approximately 140,000 Native American veterans living. So again, a big salute to all of you. Many of them are Purple Heart recipients, Bronze Star Medal honorees, and even Congressional Medal of Honor, which happens to be the highest honor one can receive from the military armed forces. Okay. Let me address the chat real quick. And I did get some chat popping in there. Gemma, hello, big hello. Prankster Lock, great to have you guys in here. It's always great to see all of you. Welcome to the stream. For the replay value, I'm going to continue going on with this. Of course, if anyone has any questions or if there's anything you'd like me to elaborate on, please don't hesitate to throw it in there. In the honor and the respect of the military and the Native Americans who served in the military. And hey, Green Feather, welcome. Awesome. Great to see you here, my friend. In continuing with honoring our veterans of the military who were Native American, I also want a great big shout out to the women Native Americans. guys, women Native Americans, and here I'm going to get into just a little side slant here of this whole thing. Native women Native Americans since the very first war America ever had, which would be the Revolutionary War, would be the first war as Americans, have always been involved in the aid of the Americans, not only as medical aid and first aid on the sidelines, but literally in battle. There are multiple stories of men who were not of Native American descent, but married Native American women, and they quickly found out that their wives were willing to fight right alongside of them, loading their guns for them, and in some stories, picking up their guns and carrying on the battle when their husbands were killed on the battlefield. Native American women, very strong-hearted, and they were there since the beginning, and it's something that does need to be recognized. Oh, okay. Again, let me hop here and just say, I start boot camp in a few weeks. All right there, Green Feather. Awesome, brother. Guys, if you don't know Green Feather's channel, and a prankster and Gemma, if y'all still in here hanging out, jump over, say hello, get to know the channel. I'm sure he will do the same. Green Feather is going to be a guest on an upcoming show, so get to go ahead and take a moment and get to know him. All you got to do is follow his avatar at some point. I know YouTube makes it harder to follow. Hi, Gemma. It is great to have you here, hon. Today, there's approximately 11% of living Native Americans Today, approximately 11% of living veteran Native Americans are women, 11% compared to 8% of other ethnic groups. And again, I wanted to point out that even as all the diversities we have in this country, when we look at the diversities as a ethnic group themselves, they stand up taller than any other in the United States, and they always have. That's another really valid point. Hey guys, I don't have much new content, but yeah, hey, no worries, bro. Awesome, prankster. Great to see you, brother. From here, I did want to just go into a little bit of talk about Chief White Eyes. Chief White Eyes happens to be one of my favorite. Oh, Gemma, you're a sweetheart. Thank you, honey. Chief White Eyes happens to be one of my favorite historical figures. When people talk about George Washington and all that he done for his country, I can't help to think that a nation as strong as, if not maybe even stronger at the time, who served as an ally to George Washington, come from the Lenape Nation, and Chief White Eyes was that man in charge. And if there was a comparison ever to George Washington in a native asset, it would be Chief White Eyes. And so much of a comparison that I honestly feel, I have personal opinion, but I honestly feel July 4th should be a day to recognize all that the Lenape clan has done for the Americas. Because guys, honestly, this country would not be here if it was not for their assistance. And there's no denial of that by anybody, by historians, by British, by Americans. There's no denial of that. But it's a sad truth that it's not taught in school, that you learn about George Washington and you don't learn about Chief White Eyes. It's a crying shame. It really is. There's not a whole lot I can tell you about Chief White Eyes prior to the French Indian War, other than the fact that he was probably born in Philadelphia, and he was probably born around 1730. We don't know how well he could speak English, although because of his duties as a moderator between whites and Indians later in his life. That alone would indicate that he obviously knew some English. We don't believe he could read or write English. Um, he first shows up in colony records, and again, this is why we have trouble because of the way records were kept back then. But in colony records, he first shows up during the French Indian War, the 7-Year War, and he was a messenger and a noted messenger. By 1773, he was the speaker of the Lenape head council. Now, although I can't tell you much of anything about him prior to what history has written, I can tell you this. If he acquired the seat as head council, which he did, he was a very honored and respected man. This isn't a chiefhood in this manner wasn't given away like a kingship. See, we had a big misunderstanding between the British colonists and the natives in the way things were run, because there had to be a whole education process on a set of people coming from a monarchy to coming to a land that was actually a free land. What many people don't realize is the layout of our country, the way we elect officials, the way we campaign to get that seat is all modeled off of a system that was already in act by the time the colonists got here, because the natives didn't give away a seat on the council or a title of chiefhood, which came to White Eyes within a year. By 1774, he was elected the principal chief. But this wasn't given away easily or freely. Okay, this was something that you needed to be honored and respected to receive. Okay. So this I can tell you, he was honored, he was respected. Now, going into the history of White Eyes was really an amazing Native American. He didn't convert to Christianity, although as a chief, he seen the division Christianity was bringing to his people. Now, back in this time, there were missionaries that actually went out and set up their camps and lived right inside the Native American camps, okay? And their job was to convert these Native Americans to Christianity. And in a lot of respects, it worked. I mean, at one point, they assumed approximately half the tribe was split between Christian belief and non-Christian belief. Now, White Eyes, again, like I said, guys, he was an amazing dude, because he come into this turmoil and he was able to join the non-Christian and the Christian Lenape back together as one tribe, to stress upon the fact that it isn't the belief of your religion that's as important as the value of your people and of your beliefs and your heritage and your traditions. And he reunited the native nation. And in that respect, he was quite amazing. But it didn't stop there. Although historians like to say, I'm going to research. Oh, awesome, John. I'm glad you do. I'm glad if you do, hon, because honestly, to involve yourself in Native American Heritage Month, you don't have to be a native to do this. All you have to do is just involve yourself in the understanding of any culture. Educate yourself on something that you didn't know about Native Americans, and you participated. That's all it is. That's all it takes to participate. So if you stop after this video and you go research this, thank you for participating in Native American Heritage Month. British is okay. Gemma, and this kind of sidetracks a little bit where I was just going, but it does stay on point. The British, which, the original colonies here in America, they were British. Okay. It wasn't until 1775 when the war broke out between the colonists and the British government. Up until that point, they were British. It was the Declaration of Independence, the group that got together prior to the Declaration, that created America. But honestly, they were British. Now, the Lenape had, again, I told you how the nation was split. It was split with religion, and it was also split by those who would keep their word and those who wouldn't. All right, and in some respects, word would be kept, and the natives were very honorable. If you keep your word, it would be disrespectful for them not to keep their word, so they would play an honor system. Okay, um, so part of the native tribe, even the Lenape tribe, sided with the British at first, although um, not as many. Now there also was a large group. We'll back up war a little bit. There was a large group that stood with the French, and they too were Lenape Indian. Uh, to understand why they stood with the French during the French Indian War, but again, the tribe was split. Not all Lenape stood with the French, but a large portion did. But the reason they did is because by this point in history, the British lied. They made treaty after treaty after treaty, and now the Native Americans, the Lenape especially, they weren't even no longer allowed to step foot on their own tribal land anymore. It was gone to them. And they seen all that great deceit, so they turned, and some of them turned. But like I said, not all of them did, because even though they lost that land, others tried to maintain the honor and the respect of the new treaties as they came up. And again, they were coming up with British. But once the Americans decided they wanted to do what they wanted to do, Chief White Eyes, he was a Lenape chief, as I mentioned earlier. He understood what the Americans wanted. He understood the break into the liberation. Um, Chief White Eyes was a visionary, guys. Now, again, let's understand Chief White Eyes a minute. And I was getting into this before I broke for Gemma there. Chief White Eyes, he wasn't educated as the other colonists were. However, he wasn't ignorant to the colonist lifestyle. He founded the first town in Ohio. He owned a pub and a trading post. So he was a businessman as well as a Native American. He understood the lifestyle of both sides, and he tried his best to bring those lifestyles together. Now, he had a vision, and it was an incredible, incredible vision. No other vision since has tried to play out, and probably never will. But he had a vision that his nation would be included in the new United States, not to be a group of natives that were stuck out on a sovereign land to be theirs, but a group of natives that were given a state just like the other colonists, and that they would participate in the state. They wanted, they understood that the states were setting up a House of Representatives and a council. All right, guys, because this is how they learned how to do that, was from the Native Americans. And he understood exactly what they were doing, and he wanted part of it. He wanted a Native representative to sit on the House. He wanted his state to be included with every other state in the Union. And in 1778, because the war was going so crappy, and I did do a little video about the treaty I'm mentioning right now. But in 1778, he signed a treaty where the Americans agreed to give him Ohio as the 14th state of the Union. And now in White Eye's life comes in a whole lot more treachery. Once the treaty was signed, they allowed the word to be spread. Okay. And I remember things were different back then. They weren't like they are today. I can't just send out a group text message and tell all my native friends in Ohio that we signed a treaty and this is what we're doing. So it was a word of mouth thing. Okay, so time had to be spent, a little bit of time spent for the word of mouth to spread. During this time, the government of America, the America representatives, whatever you want to refer to them as, took White Eyes on a survey of Ohio to detail exactly what he gets. Now, during this survey, he was executed. Uh, he was executed, and it was covered up. Okay, I was saying, well, what do you mean it was covered up? Well, it was covered up because when he was executed at first, because of the word of mouth thing, guys, remember how things traveled slow, okay? Probably people were just finding out about the treaty by the time he was executed. He was executed, and at first it was hidden, just hidden directly. Don't, nobody speak of it. But because there were other natives involved in the survey, as well as colonists who were literally friends of White Eyes involved in the survey, there was no way to keep it a secret. But it was attempted to be covered up. Their second attempt to cover up, after trying to just keep it quiet altogether, was to spread word to the Native Americans that he died of a sickness. That he still wants to stand true on the treaty, blah, 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 but he died of the sickness. And ultimately, guys, it worked. They were able to maintain their ally with the Lenape clan, who honestly already owned it, but they possessed the Ohio territory. The whole state of Ohio was, part of the Northern Territory, but the entire state of region of where Ohio is today, that was already pretty much, that was all Lenape. And it was also the back door for a lot of battle sites because of the Great Lakes. So again, they allowed it, they allowed it to go quiet, and then their second attempt at cover up, still worked, and they received the assistance. Now, by time the war ended, which was just a few years later, by time the war ended, he the truth had begun to come out, and one of his friends who was there at the time notified the U.S. government of Congress and let them know what had really happened, that he was murdered, essentially. The government never took any responsibility for it. However, for the first time ever, and I believe the only time ever since, and I might be wrong about that, but I researched, and I don't think it's ever happened since. The government adopted his son. Now, they didn't adopt his son in adopting him to the family. They allowed a family to adopt him. But our government paid his bills for most of his life. Our government paid to send him to college. And they paid over, because there was many notes written to Congress that the costs were too high. And this is why, and these are all public record that you can find, and I had no problem finding them. And so it seems that they were paying $200 a month for his education, which in my opinion must have been outrageous for the time era. They also gave him a bunch of land in Ohio. However, they also played dirty pool on his land. After giving him a bunch of land, they then year by year took land back from him for taxes and ultimately left him with nothing. But that's no surprise. All right, guys. So Chief White Eyes, yeah, but he was a very so they killed his dad and then paid for him to be brainwashed. See, there you go. And in a sense, that is what really happened. They also murdered his wife. His wife was an interesting story. I don't know if I really, 24 minutes in. Because his wife's story probably deserves an entire video itself because of the fact that I think I owe it to the Lenape to explain their war tactics and their war honors before I explain his wife, I guess, in a way, because his wife was actually British. She lived on a farm in Pennsylvania. Now she grew up with the Lenape ever since she was 5 years old. She was fully assimilated. And I guess that's the point that I when I talk about his wife, uh, I really feel it's important to stress that she wasn't a slave. How did she become a Native American? Well, she was a survivor. There was a large group of colonists who started a private war with the Lenape. Okay. Now, as again, this was like a turf war. Okay, just between this colony and a small group of Lenape. Well, the war turned out badly for the colonists. I believe it was a large family. I think it was like around 20 people, maybe a little bit more than that. The only survivors was an old woman, two girls, and I think one boy. Ultimately, the ones who would not assimilate, okay, and I'll explain that more here in a second, were released eventually. The one girl, and who became White Eye's wife, was only 5 years old when all this went down. By time it came about to where the ones who didn't want to be there were released, she was been raised for a few years by the Native Americans, and not raised as a slave or raised as a dirty white person or something. She was raised as a Native American, period. Because if you're part of it, that's what you are. They didn't look at color like we look at today. Uh, so she was all in sense Native American. In fact, there was just her cousin ran into her at a trading post when she was grown up. He recognized her, knew who she was, and she had no desire whatsoever to leave the native culture. And again, like I said, at this point, she was assimilated. And see, what I mean is, slavery is a funny thing. Now, I can't speak for every nation of tribes. I've been told in the past that, yeah, there were tribes that kept slaves. The natives that I am well versed in, the ones that are in my blood and in my heritage, were not slave keepers. In fact, if we go turn the clock back to the 1400s, all right, now the natives that were encountered were not my Lenape ancestors, but they were cousins of, okay? So, being they were cousins of, it's easy to understand that they had a lot of the same culture, a lot of the same beliefs. They were given slaves by explorers that had come over back in, I think, I want to say 1470 something. I don't really remember the exact date, so don't hold me to that. But they were the first slaves that African American slaves that were ever brought to the East Coast of America, and there was four of them, and they were left here when the and they were Spanish, of course. When the Spaniards returned, okay, years later, those four slaves, they weren't slaves. They were Native Americans. They done been assimilated. And if you were willing to be part of the clan, participate like a Native American, do your part like any other Native American, you were accepted Native American. And that's what ended up happening. And I think that's really important to add that aspect, that they didn't see that color like we all see today. We all seem to be so judgmental about the tone of somebody's skin. Uh, when the Native Americans seen the value of the body, not the color of the skin. And if you were willing to participate in their lifestyle, then you had value as a body. So slavery wasn't the same. Susquehanna, probably that or the turf war. It was on a farm and it might be because Susquehanna runs through that part of Pennsylvania. So it probably is. You know what? It's actually one of the researchable stories about White Eyes. So um, you can actually find out a little bit more about his wife. But the knowledge you'll find out about his wife doesn't go into detail. It almost makes it sound like she was a slave and then somehow forced into marriage, and this wasn't the case. This wasn't the case at all. So, all right, guys. Wow. It has been a 30-minute video. I got a lot of Native American heritage out there. I truly hope out of all this, if you didn't catch the beginning of the video, we did a salute to all the veterans, and we also did a salute to the Native American veterans. So, maybe check that out. If you missed the very beginning, I gave you some really interesting stats and numbers on serving on Native Americans who serve. And I think we gave a lot of information. So if anyone has any questions at all, I am definitely willing to answer. And so I thank you. I thank you all for coming. I thank you, my brother there, Green Feather. Again, guys, let me do another shout out here for Green Feather. Is going to be joining me in a live video coming up soon. We didn't work out the exact day yet. It'll be a soon to happen video. We will celebrate Native American Heritage Month together. He is a fellow Lenape. He's one of my brothers, and we're gonna talk and bring some more Lenape education your way. Iro researches for sure. I would love to stream with you about. Oh, Gemma, when you want to do it, hon? Right? All you got to do is get a hold of me, and that goes for any of you. I like talking. If you ain't figured that out yet, so definitely Green Feather. I'm looking forward to it, bro. Get a hold of me. I sent you a follow-up email there, so get a hold of me. Dax Logos. Your family is indigenous. That is awesome, my friend. Do you know much about your own heritage? It's not something to be embarrassed by if you don't know. And if you do know, make it your responsibility to share it with others who may not. There's never a reason for a culture to be lost. And we have too much technology today to keep too much of this stuff alive. Our education system should concentrate on all aspects of mankind's life and not isolate any group or any culture. And it's obvious that we do isolate many groups and many cultures. And it's a shame. But I don't know my actual heritage, but I do know that there's not my mother's. Awesome. A lot of times you'll be surprised just by the type of research you can pull up on your own. And I highly recommend researching your tribe. If you're part of a tribe that still has an existing nation, okay, which now there were a lot more natives in this land than there are today. But if you have one that has an existing nation, like the Lenape, you're fortunate in a way, because in that fact, that means you do have elders, and there is education to learn about your heritage. You can learn it from these elders. So research your tribe, find a newsletter from their. That's the best place to start, is with their newsletters from their reservation. and then ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Native Americans are nice peoples. They're good peoples. I vouch for them. Message on Twitter. All right, Gemma. Awesome. Guys, I'm going to wrap up here. So, again, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out. And anyone coming in on a replay, I know that's where these videos get the most of their views is on the replays. So if you're coming in on a replay and you stayed for the whole thing, thank you very much. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know you were here. S&M Gamer! Woof, woof. Great to see you. It's always great to see you guys as you come in. I'll send you an email. Definitely, Green Feathers. Do that. Jelly Duck. My brother, Jelly Duck. You guys actually, I would love for you guys to do me a solid and check out the video, this video. I'm getting ready to wrap it up, but at least catch the beginning and learn something new about a Native American culture and about Native American people and participate in Native American Heritage Month, because that's what it is. And you get to participate just by learning. That's it. It's the easiest thing in the world to participate in. All you got to do is learn something new. One thing. Learn one thing new. And I believe this video does offer that. And if you got the 30 minutes to spare, listen to the whole thing. It's definitely valuable stuff. I did mention the treaty. I dropped a video about the treaty. You might want to check that out. Again, something that's not educated enough and should be taught in all schools. I'm a firm believer that 4th of July, our Independence Day, should be partially a Native American Heritage Day itself, because without them, this country wouldn't be here. Guys, until our trails meet again, I hope all your adventures are awesome. I will be live again. Maybe this week with Green Feather, if he's free, maybe Friday we'll do it. But if nothing else, guys, follow along. Budget, man, check out this video. Some really good stuff in here, man. Really good stuff in here. Peter Parker, oh man, all you guys coming in as I'm going. I appreciate all you guys, though. I really do. And if you got a moment, jump back, check out Learning Language. Very fun. Awesome. Winishita for learning. As you learn, if you learn something new by learning a language, you're learning something new. The Lenape language is really special because it helps paint the culture a little bit. There's a type of poetry that comes from their words. And that gives you a little bit of an insight to the way they see life. Awesome. Till our trails meet again, I hope all your adventures are awesome, guys. I'm going to jump out. Catch this video from the beginning. There is some really good, valuable stuff in there. Of course, I got a Native American playlist. If you check it out on the channel, too. Everybody, thanks again. Much love. And I'll be looking for those emails and tweeters there. Tweeters. I'll catch you guys later. Much love.